Hey everybody, Awesome Andrew Games here. I messed up. A little while ago, I was fastly approaching 2,000 subscribers. Thank you, by the way. I decided that I wanted to do something special to commemorate such an event, but I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I made a community post and said that whatever the most liked comment on that post was, I'd do it. And then my friend Sully, who also posts on YouTube, he reposted my community post and told his subscribers to go like his comment, which is all fine and dandy. What was the comment, you might be asking? Yeah. It's the most liked comment by far, like 3 times the second most liked comment. I don't even know how many likes it has at this point, but I didn't want to do this. But I'm a man of my word, and if you respect me for having the gall to complete such a task, please subscribe. I don't want to be here doing this. It's okay. We got it. I just opened the link Sully sent me. Here it is. This is it. Alright, he told me not to read the tags, so I'm not going to. I'm going to... I'm gonna have to heavily censor this. But, if you want an uncensored version of this video, I will post an uncensored version to my to members only. So if you want to join the membership, you get cool emojis, you get whatever, you get this video, maybe more videos, maybe if it gets a good reception, it's only $1 if you're interested. Anyways, I'm just gonna read this. Man. Susie woke up that morning. Wait. Okay, there's notes. This was a commission from an anonymous client. Susie woke up that morning the same way she did every day. A kick to the ribs, followed by a raspy, whiskey-soaked demand to go to school. She waited until the sounds of footsteps faded into the living room, followed by the ever-familiar thump of an older woman's buttocks hitting the moldy sofa in front of the broken-down television. Groaning, Susie turned over on her slightly damp mattress and tossed off the moth-eaten sheet she used as a blanket. Feeling a yawn coming on, Susie stretched, arching her back as every kink from her little finger to her large toes splayed out and wriggled as life returned to them. She yawned a long, hard yawn, as if there was anything less, as her jaw practically hit her chest. Her long, plump tongue flopped out of the gaping maw, before Susie sat up, drawing it back in to smack her lips. She yawned and then... That's it. That's all it's describing. She grimaced through messy bangs as dim morning light peeked through the blinds and hit the side of her face like an unwanted kiss. Upon stretching, her heels came down with a slight bump against the wood floor. Susie's crusty eyes glared at her huge feet hanging off the end of the bed like oversized purple loaves of bread. They were cold, unlike the rest of her. The sweat stains under the arms of her white t-shirt had made sure she'd been roasting all night. But her big, stupid feet always stuck out, keeping her in a constant state of clamminess. Ugh, f*** you, feet, she mumbled, still in a half-asleep daze. Big, ugly, stupid man feet. By the way, subscribe if you like my Susie voice. Get moving, the raspy voice snapped from down the hall. Alright, I'm up, Susie groaned, sitting up and forcing out the cobwebs as best as she could. She shot a sneer at her door and whispered, "Dumb b***," under her breath. Truth be told, she didn't care about the size of her feet, at least not consciously, but it was a nice distraction from her actual problems, at least a brief one. Susie stood up, curling her toes against the cold floor, stretching again before continuing her daily routine. She threw on her jeans before finding a shirt from the pile that was kinda clean. pulled her jacket out from under an empty chicken bucket, which she immediately ate, and started looking for her boots. One had landed in the corner, and to her mild delight, Susie found a chicken bone inside that still had some meat on it. "Thank you very much," she said, holding the bone over her head and stretching open her mouth. Don't eat me, please! Too bad. The bone landed with a plop on her tongue, bouncing on its meaty surface before sliding down her wide gullet. Susie's jaw snapped shut, and she let out a loud, satisfied gulp. The Adam's apple of her thick neck bobbled, resembling a light-colored plum. Susie patted her stomach, which was still hungry for more, but a treat was a treat nonetheless. I hate this. As it turned out, the other boot had landed by the window when Susie had angrily chucked it across the room last night. Susie went to pick it up and came to discover why it had been so cold in the first place. The top of the boot pointed towards the bottom of the sill, which was cracked open slightly. It was small enough that Susie had easily missed it. Grunting, she promptly grabbed the handle and slammed it shut. "Stop breaking shit!" came a shriek. "Get out of this house already!" "I'm not," Susie snapped back, "and I'm putting my goddamn shoes on. Fuck!" Gritting her teeth down to the gums, Susie stormed over to her bed and sat down. She was steaming, breathing through her nose like a bull about to charge. How she wanted badly to oblige in the old woman's commands and get the out. She practically slammed her foot into the sole of her boot, moving as quickly as she could. In a minute she'd be gone, out of this shack, away from her. Then she took her other boot, the one that had been near the window, rammed her foot inside, and felt something squish against her sole, followed by a clearly audible squeak of terror. Ah! Susie stumbled back, kicking the boot off and shuffling backwards until her back hit the wall. Wide-eyed panic quickly gave way to a furious glare as she stood back up, stomping indignantly. "God damn it, these mice! Buy some damn traps already, you lazy hag!" No response, aside from a grunt that sounded somewhat like "shut up," before dissolving into a snore. Thank God for small miracles. Huffing, Susie started to make her way over to pick the boot up, and then abruptly halted. Something small and brown was crawling out. But last Susie checked, mice didn't have antlers. They didn't wear sweaters either. Sweaters? Sweaters. And they certainly didn't look up and call her name with panicked faces, although if they could, she didn't doubt they would. Susie cautiously stepped forward, one foot still bare, the other still in its clunky boot, leaning forward with a squint of bemusement. "Noel?" "In the flesh?" There was no mistaking that tiny squeak of a voice. Really not much had changed, aside from the pitch. Susie crouched, resting her hands on her knees as her eyes remained fixated on the now 3-inch-high deer, grinning nervously up at her. No matter how much she blinked, convinced that she was still dreaming of ham sandwiches, there was no doubt about it. It was shaped like Noel, looked like Noel, and sounded like Noel. She was just tiny. Susie's head rattled with questions, but the shock blocked her throat like a clogged pipe. The only word she managed to sputter out was a single, "How?" "I don't know," Noel said, waving her arms in bewildered fright. "All I remember is that I had this weird dream last night about some kind of other world in the school." You don't say," Susie coughed. "Where I met this funny little guy who kept yelling about the deal of a lifetime before he gave me an open can of soda with something in it that smelled funny. When I drank it, the little guy yelped about paying him back with, Noel scratched her head. Cromer, I think he called it?
Hey, kid, want a wiener in your mouth?
Anyway, he then leaped into a trash can and rolled off into the side of a building. That was when I woke up." "And you were just drunk?" Susie raised an eyebrow. "Yeah," Noel said, shrugging. "I don't understand it either." "Well, how did you get here?" Susie asked. "And what were you doing in my boot?" Noel flushed. "Well, the first thing I tried to do was to get my mom's attitude, but she was in a hurry to get to work and didn't seem to hear me. So I jumped into her purse, hoping I could climb up to her head." "Oh, kinda like that game," Susie said, snapping her fingers. "What was it, in the giant shadow?" "Right, yeah," Noel said, nodding rapidly while smiling. "I wanted to do that, but on the way to the car, I slipped and landed in a pile of leaves. I started to panic because I was all alone, and everything was so much bigger than me. I thought I would be eaten by a squirrel or something." Those guys only eat nuts, Susie noted. Yeah, but not the ones who own the liquor store outside town, Noel said. Those guys are nuts. Huh, fair point. Anyway, I wandered for a bit, trying to keep hidden when I stumbled across your home, Noel continued. You have no idea how much of a relief it was when I climbed through the window and saw it was your home, Susie. Yeah, I really don't, Susie said awkwardly, rubbing the back of her head. But how'd you get up to the window? Noel placed her hooves on her hips and puffed out her chest proudly, which looked pretty funny when she was only a few centimeters tall. I run track, remember? I may be tiny, but I haven't lost my athleticism. Right, Susie said, trying to hide her blush of endearment. And the boot? Noel flinched. She smiled apologetically. I didn't know how else to wake you up. I tried everything, but you must have been in a really deep sleep. I yelled, I pulled your hair, I even tried tickling your feet, but none of... Wait, you what? Susie yelped in alarm, her giant toes curling instinctively, which sent Noel falling over with a startled shriek of fright. Oops, Susie delicately lifted Noel up by the back of her shirt with 2 fingers. Sorry about that. It's okay, Noel said, brushing off her shirt. I should apologize for touching you when you weren't awake, too. Oh no, it's not like that, Susie said. I mean, look at you. You had to wake me up somehow. I just, She shifted one foot over the other. I don't like the idea of you, like, I don't know, seeing my feet so close. Noel tilted her head to the side. But why? Well, 'cause, Susie sputtered indignantly. 'Cause they're ginormous and freaking gross, that's why. I mean, that boot alone must have been hell. Susie, it's not like I was in there all night, Noel said, giving Susie a bemused grin. Just when your, grandma came in to wake you up. Close enough, Susie sneered. Right. Noel raised a reassuring hand. But either way, I don't think you have ugly feet, Susie. You're just being nice. No, really, trust me. I was close enough to get a good look at them. She giggled a bit, which made Susie's cheeks pinken. From where I'm standing, everything is big, so it made no difference to me what size you are. Noel looked at her. Susie looked at her. Sorry. Noel had her hooves behind her back, looking up at her with a patient grin as she said this. And, I don't do shoes, so I can't speak for everyone, but, oh my, how do I word this? Everybody stinks. She raised her arm as if revealing something incredible for the first time. So don't feel bad about yourself, because you have a strong, healthy body. There was a brief pause as Susie stared at her. Noel kept her arms raised, still grinning while under a clear strain. Finally, Susie smiled back, amused but genuine. Thanks, Noel, I think. Of course! They both kept smiling at each other for a moment longer. Then, out of nowhere, something clicked in Susie's mind. Wait! Why are we talking about my feet? You're the size of a potato chip, for God's sake! Without a second warning, Noel was scooped up and dropped into Susie's pocket, where she landed with a startled doof. Come on, Susie said hurriedly, slipping the rest of her attire on and rushing for the door. We need to get back to the dark world ASAP! Things took an interesting turn from there. Thanks, fanfiction, for telling me that the fanfiction is about to get interesting. Before they were able to get back to the dark world, Noel had insisted to Susie that they absolutely needed to finish class first. Susie begrudgingly agreed, but only after Noel promised to help her with their assignment for the day. Fine, Susie said, smirking as she headed the other way. I've always thought it would make school way better if I had a little person to whisper the answers in my ear all day. Susie! Noel scolded, raising herself from Susie's pocket to wave a finger. Oh, I knew it, dude. I am not helping you cheat. I only meant that I would help you understand if you got stuck. Yeah, Susie said flippantly. She looked at Noel with genuine interest. But imagine the look on those kids' faces if I started throwing out big numbers and long-worded answers. Berdley would totally crap his pants. Noel went to object, but promptly clamped shut. She wasn't entirely sure Berdley wouldn't do that either. Suffice to say, Alphys's class was pretty shocked to see Susie come to school while Noel was inexplicably absent. Not that she hadn't had sick days or anything, but at those times Noel had at least called in beforehand. For her to have not given anybody some sort of word left Alphys and the rest of the class speechless. Okay. Caddy turned to look at Susie, while Berdley was frantically trying to recite an ancient poem without Noel there to back him up. What was it? Susie looked up. Caddy was as monotone as ever, but was glaring at Susie with a raised eyebrow. The purple teen's eyes shifted side to side in awkward confusion. What was what? You, Caddy said flatly. Did something. Noel. Absent. Clear connection. What? Susie's eyes widened in alarm, glancing down at Noel in her pocket. The little deer had her hooves planted over her mouth in terror. Gulping, Susie did her best to look casual while placing her hand over said pocket, pretending to scratch herself. I have no idea what you're talking about, dude. Shut up before you get in trouble. Trouble, Caddy snorted, her dull monotone dripping with skepticism. That's you. Bad liar you are. Where is she? Locked up? Basement? You gonna eat her? Susie went to say something in a cold fury as Caddy spoke, but was then lurched into a halt at the ending of that statement. A very bizarre feeling had rushed through Susie just now. She didn't understand what it was. Some kind of shock, taken aback by what Caddy had just suggested. But it was also not entirely negative. It almost felt exciting. I'm like halfway done with this thing. She sat there sputtering in surprise before Susie's thoughts finally came back together. Snarling softly, she bared her teeth at Caddy and thrust a finger in her face. I'll eat your dumb ass, she hissed. And then I'll chase it down with Jockington's dumb hat and his stupid face, too. It happened too fast for Susie to see, but she could have sworn Caddy's eye had twitched. She turned away, hastily snatching her phone out of her pocket, and sank back into her seat as she drowned out the real world in favor of social media. Susie smirked in satisfaction, knowing she'd hit the right button, and back into her seat. From her pocket, Noel slowly peeked out, looking up at Susie with concern, her mind racing with mixed feelings. She had heard the whole thing, and she, too, had felt a strange jolt of pleasure upon hearing what Caddy had suggested. And tell Chris I hope they feel better, Alpha said to Susie as she and the other students poured out into the hallway. She had a nervous, slightly perturbed look on her face as she added, Tell them I'll be cheering them on as they recover from a potassium-deficient explosive bowel syndrome. We have an explanation for Chris's absence. Thank God this fanfiction is grounded in reality. Sure thing, Miss Alphys, Susie said, smiling so hard it looked like her cheeks might burst from holding in her knowing laughter. The walk to the storeroom was awkwardly silent. Noel watched Susie shuffle one foot in front of the other, her face scrunched up underneath her messy bangs. The tiny teen was at a loss. She wanted to ask if Susie was alright, but there was no way she could bring up what Caddy said about being eaten. Not with the confused feelings inside still racking her brain. Honestly, what would Susie think if Noel said she thought the idea of being swallowed whole was enjoyable? At that moment, Noel heard a low, moan-like rumble. She looked up again, alarmed that Susie might have been more upset than she realized, only to hear the rumble come again, this time from her immediate right. The noise had been even louder, but Susie's face remained blank. Cautiously, Noel pressed her ear against Susie's side. Sure enough, the squelching moan of an empty stomach gurgled like a wet gear. Susie, Noel spoke up, poking out of the pocket again. Are you hungry? Susie came to a dead halt. Hesitantly, she placed her hand on her stomach. Yeah, she said, oddly quiet. I haven't eaten a damn thing all day, except maybe a chicken bone. Oh, that's awful, Noel said. You should eat something right away. We can wait to go back to the dark world. What? No, I'm not gonna leave you all tiny just because I have the munchies. I can't. Susie had been avoiding looking at Noel, but the urge was overtaking her. Filled with reservation, her eyes drifted to the side. Noel sat in her pocket, gazing up at her with those very worry-filled doe eyes, looking so small, so cute, so tasty. Flinching, Susie shook her head and tried to laugh the thought off. I can handle it. I'll just mooch Rosie for a cake or two when we get there. Besides, I'm used to going hungry for a day. It didn't seem to reassure either of them as she began to hurry forward. Susie's stomach gurgled again, and she could have sworn she heard Noel shudder a bit. They reached the closet door, which seemed to detect their presence as it opened automatically, revealing the dark abyss within. Susie continued to pretend everything was fine as she put her hands on her hips, gritting with as many teeth as she could show. Well, here we are, she said. Let's get this over with. She took exactly one step before she heard a faint yet firm command of, Wait! Susie stopped, looking down at Noel in her pocket. Her face faltered, expression changing to a weak half-smile. Noel? Noel stared up at Susie with an odd blank look the latter had never seen from the deer before. It was rather eerie. Let's not go there yet, Noel said calmly. She seemed to be breathing heavily, if slowly. Huh? Susie said. What for? I want to do something, Noel said, swallowing loudly. Oh, truth be told, I've been thinking about it for a while, and after what Caddy said, Hey, hold on, Susie said, frowning. Don't worry about what she said, okay? Caddy hates me. She's hated me ever since... No, it's not about her, They both paused as they spotted Toriel heading down the opposite hallway, humming to herself as she was finishing her work for the night. Darting her head left and right, Susie spotted the door to the unused classroom and booked it. Oh god, I don't want to know what they're going to do in this room. She slipped in and shut the door behind her softly, clicking on the light switch. They were met with a flickering pale yellow that barely illuminated the room, indicating a dying bulb. It was thankfully just what they needed. I don't like this no more. That was close, Susie said, walking to the center of the room. She scooped Noel out of her pocket and lifted her till she was face level. Hey, I took off pretty hard back there. You okay? Yes. Noel spoke in a soft, hypnotic sort of way as she looked into Susie's huge face. Specifically, she gazed at Susie's mouth as she spoke, watching the long tongue flap up and down between the many rows of sharp teeth. Susie squinted in concern as Noel started to shiver and fell to her knees. Noel, Susie said, carefully bending to one knee, perchance the minuscule tear slipped. What is it? What's up? Noel continued to gaze at her, once again breathing heavily while unblinking, staring with those big bright eyes. Susie wished she would stop, only because she didn't like the way she was enjoying it. Susie, Noel said, so suddenly sharp it startled both of them. I want you to do something. It might be the strangest thing I've ever wanted, and I have no idea how to put it into words, but I think you already know what it is. Because you want it too. The color drained from Susie so fast she turned from purple to light violet in seconds. She gulped, her plum of an Adam's apple bouncing. I don't know what you... But she couldn't finish her sentence on account of the drool that was accumulating under her tongue. Slurping, Susie hastily wiped her chin and sat cross-legged on the floor, holding Noel at arm's length. The latter tilted her head as Susie began trembling. Susie? I think... Susie lifted her head, mouth slightly agape, drool dribbling over her lip. Her eyes were now huge and fixated on the tiny, sweet little thing in her hand. I think you're right. Noel smiled comfortingly. It's okay, Susie. I understand. I don't want to be here anymore. Hunching into a ball, Susie held Noel to her chest. Her stomach rumbled like thunder. We'll do it however you want, Susie said, throat hitched. You lead the way. Just tell me what to do. If that's what you'd like, Noel said, nuzzling Susie's chest with her cheek. Then that's how we'll do it. Or then that's how we'll do... I don't know who said that. I don't care. And if we can, we'll go to the Dark World. We'll ask Rouse to... Susie? Noel interrupted firmly. Don't think about that right now. Let's just savor the moment. So they did. Without another word, Susie placed Noel on the floor, a foot away from her. She sat in silence, awaiting her instructions. Despite being barely an inch, Noel's presence seemed to tower over Susie. It was exhilarating. Noel kept smiling, her excitement reserved as she inhaled. Okay, she whispered breathily before pointing at Susie's feet. Take off your boots. Susie bit her lip hesitantly. Noel gave an encouraging smile. With a grunt, Susie placed one foot in her lap and gave the dingy boot a tug, pulling it off and hawking it to the side. She did the same to the other one, keeping her legs in a butterfly position as she sheepishly pressed her feet together. 6 claws clicked together as her plump toes wiggled anxiously. Now, Noel said, go ahead and take your jacket off too. Then, she seemed to stifle a giggle. Then, lean back with your legs stretched forward. Susie gulped again. She removed the jacket and set it down, and proceeded to rest backwards with her palms to the floor. Blushing madly, Susie extended a leg while the other bent at the knee. I'm trying to visualize this. Extended a leg while the other bent at the knee. Is she on her chest? Oh no. Noel was practically dizzy with amusement at Susie's pose. It was like something straight out of a 90s grunge album. As if in a trance, she began walking toward the massive purple bare foot to her right. Susie grit her teeth in fear, instinctively curling her toes, but Noel didn't look at Susie's foot. She looked into... How are you looking at... No, she looked into Susie's eyes with a warm, reassuring smile before hoisting herself onto Susie's ankle. The dragon teen watched as the tiny deer began walking across her leg like a log across a stream, arms spread out to her sides. Then, she reached Susie's torso. Gripping the white t-shirt, Noel began to climb. She came to rest at the spot between Susie's soft belly and her chest. With a small moan of pleasure, Noel laid herself down to press her ear against Susie's belly. She could hear the rumbling squelches calling to her, and she sighed blissfully. Susie watched all this, inhaling deeply through her nostrils before exhaling a hot, steamy breaths from between her teeth. Her fingers and toes clawed at the floor, itching to move, to grab the sweet little deer so comfortably snuggling in her belly. Susie watched all this, inhaling deeply through her nostrils before exhaling hot, steamy breaths from between her teeth. Her fingers and toes clawed at the floor, itching to move, to grab the sweet little deer so comfortably snuggling into her belly and just... Noel. The words were a low, gurgling growl. Noel looked up and saw Susie's wide mouth, a gaping maw of razors hanging over her. The eyes were hidden away behind her bangs, except for a glint of pure white. Susie was wheezing like a rabid bear. Noel kept smiling. Susie? Noel. Susie lifted a twitching hand. You look so... delicious. Thick fingers wrapped themselves around Noel's body, and she shuddered, bracing herself. The only thing she could hear was the sound of a pounding heart. Whether it was hers or Susie's, she didn't know. Up, she was raised until Susie's fingers uncurled and pinched the back of her sweater. Dangling high over Susie's head, Noel looked down. Below her, grinning maniacally, was Susie's gargantuan maw. It stretched open until there was nothing left to see of Susie's face except for the top and bottom halves of her mouth, which several strings of drool stretched between. Jagged teeth pointed up like stalagmites. Her throat, pinkish and pulsating, was a void in which an adorable little... Oh, uvula. Oh, okay, it's that thing. I got scared for a second. Wiggled back and forth, and that tongue... God, that tongue. It was fat, juicy, dark reddish purple, and dripping with saliva. It writhed through the air like a slithering beast, aching to wrap itself around Noel and drag her down. Susie let out a low, rumbling growl. Noel closed her eyes. I'm so hungry. You guys read this unironically? Like, does anyone get off to this? What is this? She let go. Noel dropped and landed with a wet smack on Susie's tongue and tumbled down it like a slide in an earthquake. That's a visual. The tongue curled vertically, trying to hold on to Noel as best it could. When it pulled her in, the mouth slammed shut. All around Noel now was the vast, wet cavern of Susie's mouth. What the f***? The teeth around her looked like an inside-out smile. The tongue she sat on was a warm, wet cushion that moved up and down, like it was breathing. The air was thick with the steamy scent of yesterday's fried chicken and the vaguest hint of peppermint gum. Noel laid back, the soft, fleshy tongue enveloping her as Susie savored her flavor. Her taste buds vibrated and tickled Noel's back. The uvula, so tiny and cute compared to everything else, wiggled rapidly in place from each slow breath Susie took. Noel couldn't help but giggle at it. Then the saliva began to build. It surrounded Noel like a shallow pool, and she started to drift. Susie's tongue carried her further and further back. The edge was coming. Noel could sense the tonsils getting closer. She took a long, deep breath and grinned. She and Susie were going to be one now. I can't do this. I can't do this. This is so goofy. I'll do it for you guys. I'll do it for the 2,000 subscribers. I'm not doing this for 3,000. I'm doing something I want to do for 3,000. I'm doing something cool for 3,000. Not this. I can't do this. With a slow slurping flex of the back of her tongue, Susie gulped. Noel slid over the edge and down the rough, rigid throat into the unknown. Down, down, down she went, and then she was gone. Susie fell backwards with a plop, half awake, lost in a dreamlike state of contentment before letting out a belch that shook the foundations of the earth. The room was filled with stunned silence. Nobody, absolutely nobody, had expected the sight before them. Rousey was afraid to look. His glasses were... When did we get in the dark world? When the did we get in the dark world? I mean, there's this, like, this line right here. Maybe that's just later? I guess Noel fell asleep. I don't know. The room was filled with stunned silence. Nobody, absolutely nobody, had expected the sight before them. Rousey was afraid to look. His glasses were steamed up, and the suit he'd been forced to wear now felt stiffer than ever. His poor feet already Don't tell me Rousey's involved. His poor feet already stuffed into a pair of tight shoes, 3 sizes too small, scrunched as if to root himself to the spot. He had no idea how the others might be feeling, and he was scared to show that he was blushing furiously. Slowly he turned to his left, grinning sheepishly, pun not intended. Okay. To check the damage. As he expected, Queen's mouth was hanging open. She had an expression that seemed halfway between utter shock and a quivering grin, as if not to burst into nervous laughter. Around them, the swatchlings were all wide-eyed and just as frozen as Rousey was. The two sitting at the giant monitor before them slowly turned to look at each other, then back at the screen. Susie wasn't moving, just laying there staring at the ceiling. Where are we? Are we at the castle town? It was like this for several more seconds before Queen abruptly slammed her fist on a big red button to her left that turned off the monitor instantly. Isn't working, she said, as her usual rapid-fire pace whenever she was done with something. Goat boy, I think you were right about those helmets. Sorry, my Queen voice is a bit rough. Well, I must admit, I wasn't expecting... Rousey stammered, quickly taking off his glasses to wipe them down, hiding the fact that he was struggling to articulate anything at the moment. Like, really, I don't want to be that guy and be Judgy McJudgerson, Queen continued at a monotone yet clearly bothered tone. But these kids have some seriously weird fetishes, like, jeez, man! I thought it was kind of hot, someone mumbled. Queen didn't notice. She sprinted from the room, her long legs like pinwheels, and came back seconds later with 2 virtual reality helmets in her hands. They were a mix of white, yellow, and pink colors with the letters S and N labeled on them. Okay, let's break this down. So S and N, obviously, Susie and Noel. White, yellow, and pink, those are Spamton's colors.
Hey, kid, want a wiener in your mouth?
Here's one of you. Take these back to the annoying little man at the dump and ask for a refund. I don't know what that means, but she said it. Shoving them in the nearest swatchling's hands, she did an about face. What? Meanwhile, I will do the original... Meanwhile, I will just do the original thing I planned with the personalized happy rooms and stuff. She let out her usually obnoxious laugh. I'm losing my mind. She let out her usual obnoxiously loud laugh of woo, and promptly crashed through the wall right next to the exit door. Everyone stared at the queen-shaped hole for a while. Someone coughed. So what I want to know is, one red swatchling asked, who was into the feet and who was into the eaten alive stuff? Dunno, said a green one. I think they kind of overlapped. Huh, a blue one said. Feels good, actually. Nice to know we're not the only weirdos in the world. I'll say, another red swatchling cheered. Rousey looked side to side, as if it were a tennis match, as each swatchling suddenly began to open up and laugh with each other about their odd kinks. Do I have to censor that? I don't know. He tried to feel happy for them, smiling awkwardly throughout it all. But he had to admit the adventure had just taken a very bizarre turn. Just then, another thought suddenly clicked in Rousey's mind. What is it going to be? Potassium deficient explosive bowel syndrome? Yeah, this was certainly... This... I have lost my faith in humanity. I hate everything. You are all weird. You're all so weird. Thank you guys so much for 2,000 subscribers. I just did that. I did that for you guys. Technically, I did it for Sully, but I did it for all of you. I don't want to have to do that again. But if you guys did enjoy, subscribe, please. It's the least you can do. That's about it. Be looking forward to new videos coming soon. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know I didn't. Bye. I'm done. Bye.